Okay, good morning everyone and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Tuesday morning as we are studying together Parashat Tetzaveh. Okay, Parashat Tetzaveh, of course, we know is the Parasha of Kohanim. It's a Parasha that belongs to Aharon HaKohen. It's a Parasha that belongs to the priests because it deals with the clothing of the Kohanim and the clothing of course, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. And that our rabbis point out and they mention that actually Moshe Rabbeinu's name appears in every single parasha from beginning to end, from when he's first born, from Parashat Shemot all the way to the last parasha. Every parasha has his name except for one, our parasha. Parashat Tetzaveh, you will not find it. I'm sure there are probably many gematrias people figured out where it's hinted, but it's not written. There won't be the name Moshe, Mem, Shin, Hey. You won't find it in the Parasha because this is Aharon's Parasha. We know that every Kohen had 4 pieces of clothing, 4 garments that they wore every single day to work, okay? First are their boxers or their shorts. Then they had their robe. Then they had a belt. And then they had the hat. A kippah, a big kippah, okay? So 4 pieces of clothing, nothing else. Every day, this is what they would wear. They would wear the shorts, the robe, the belt, and the hat. The Kohen Gadol had these 4 plus 4 more. What were the 4 more items that the Kohen Gadol had? So if you have a Chumash, let's open it up. And we are in Parashat Tetzaveh, chapter 28. And take a look. One of the items that he had something called a Hoshen. Ve'asita, you shall make, says God to Moses, Hoshen mishpat. You shall make a breastplate. Okay? So that's an item that we have for the Kohen Gadol. There is another item, sorry, I skipped. Ve'asita ve'asu et ha'efod. You have to make an ephod. An ephod is like an apron. So just I want you to imagine the regular 4 pieces of clothing that he had, plus he had 4 more. What were the 4 more? He had a me'il, a second robe on top of the first robe, a very nice robe. Okay, the me'il. Then he had the ephod, which is like something that went around his waist, like an apron. Okay, I'll show you a picture. Take a look. So everyone had this robe, this first one, but he had on top of it this very nice one. And, okay, he also had an apron, which is right here, went around his waist. And you see the 2 straps, like suspenders that come around from his back and they come to the front, okay? They come around to the front. And then, so that's 1, 2. Then he also had, we just mentioned before, the Choshen, which is the breastplate. So take a look at that one. Okay, do you see it? Okay, the breastplate. And that went on his chest. So that's 3. And what was the 4th extra article that he wore every day? Anyone know? He had a hat like everyone else. Maybe a different hat, but it's still one of the 4. He had the tzitz, very good. The tzitz is the gold. It's a gold piece of metal that went, piece of gold that went right here, and it had on it the 2 words Kodesh La Hashem. Let me see if I can find. Here it is, the head plate. It's right here. Okay, it would go on his forehead. So this is a picture of the Kohen Gadol fully dressed. You can see here the nice robe on the outside. You can see the apron on the bottom. You see the breastplate, the Choshen, on his chest. Okay? And if you look closely, you could even see the tzitz on his forehead. Okay? Either way, this is, I'm sure you could look it up and find many pictures. But these are the 4 pieces of extra clothing that the Kohen Gadol wore. And what I want to focus today actually is on something that we know it's there, but we never actually studied it inside in depth. So take a look, my friends, at chapter 28, pasuk 30. Pasuk all of a sudden says, So we know he had the breastplate, which is called, we have to know the words, it's called the Choshen. Choshen HaMishpat, that's the breastplate. And on it were 12 stones, and each stone had another name of one of the tribes. Now watch this. All of a sudden, Pasuk 30. And we're introduced to something that we never saw before. Venatata, God says to Moshe, and then you shall place El Choshen HaMishpat. I want you to put on the Choshen, on this breastplate, Et HaUrim ve'et HaTumim. Oh, all of a sudden we read now about a ninth item. Also, I want you to put Urim and Tumim. Vehayu alev Aharon beba'olek nevanon. It should be on Aaron's heart when he comes in. And what exactly are these Urim Vetumim? These Urim Vetumim, again, we kind of maybe know what they are, but here it is, my friends. Let us study today the Ramban Nachmanides together. If you have a Ramban, if you could open it up right here, chapter 28, Pasuk 30. Says the Ramban, first quoting the Ibn Ezra. Sabar Rabbi Abraham leithakem be'inyan ha'urim vetumim. He says Rabbi Abraham Ibn Ezra thought to display wisdom, and he says, he was flexing. We would use today the term flexing. Rabbi Abraham Ibn Ezra, says the Ramban, is flexing in the matter of the Urim Vetumim, and he's saying that they were made. What's the Urim Vetumim? What was it? Urim Vetumim. So he says, Ibn Ezra's opinion, it was made by the craftsman. It was made out of gold and silver, and he thinks that they're like forms, shapes, different images that astrologers make in order to know the thoughts of the one who comes to ask of them. Okay, so today you have like a crystal bowl that they use. So the Ibn Ezra is under the assumption, says the Ramban, that the Urim Vetumim was some type of magical item like gold or silver, something that they created, they fashioned, and it's what they would use to predict the future. Okay, that's what the Ibn Ezra thinks. Velo amar klum, says the Ramban, very strong language. He didn't say anything, meaning he has no idea what he's talking about. It's not something that was made. Nobody created it. It wasn't something physical that was formed by any craftsman. Avalhem kedevrei Rashi, says the Ramban, it's actually, I agree to Rashi's opinion. Katav, what does it mean, the Urim Vetumim? Shem hamefurash natun ben kiflei ha'choshen. Says the Ramban, I endorse Rashi's view. According to Rashi, the Urim Vetumim was a very special name of God that was written on a piece of parchment. And this is the Urim Vetumim. This piece of paper with God's many, many, many letters of, I don't know which name of God, I don't know it. If I knew it, I wouldn't be here right now. I would go out and be using it to create a lot of cool stuff in the world, okay? I don't know exactly what the Urim Vetumim is, but it was a special name of God written on a piece of paper, and it was placed inside the flap of the Choshen. So let's go back to the Choshen for one moment. Okay? Right here. And actually this picture has it following Rashi. Take a look at the picture. So if you see the breastplate with the 12 stones, and look, you see over here, there's a flap behind. So it was actually a piece that was folded like this, kind of like this book right here, like what I'm doing right now, okay, folded. And they would put inside, right here, they would put inside a parchment with God's name. Okay, so imagine I took parchment and I put it inside, and now I wore it on my chest. And this, according to Rashi and the Ramban, that's the Urim Vetumim. Again, it's a special parchment with God's name. Vehareaya, what's my proof that it's something that Moshe inserted and it's not something else that was made? It's not some type of image made out of gold or silver. What's my proof? Says the Ramban. Beautiful. Let's learn the Ramban together. Ki lo nizkeru Urim Vetumim klal b'maaseh ha'umanin. Says the Ramban, we never find that the breastplate was ever discussed in the second step. Okay, when it came to the craftsman making it We know that our Pirashat Tetzaveh, deals with the commandment to Moshe of what to make. Then later on in Pirashat Pekudei, we're going to read that they actually went ahead and made it. But we don't ever find that they made Urim Vetumim. It's not mentioned, not in the making of, and not in the commandment of Moshe to them to make it. Moshe tells them, I want you to make an ephod, an apron. I want you to make a me'il, a robe. I want you to make choshen, the breastplate. I want you to make. He gives them the commandments of what to make. But he never tells them to make Urim Vetumim. Not only that, but we never find that they made an Urim Vetumim. According to the Ibn Ezra, that it's something that was made by craftsmen, it should have been included in the list of commandments. Says the Ramban, this is my proof that it has nothing to do with the craftsman. It was a piece of parchment with a very holy name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that was inserted. Let's keep reading. Uprat bibgadim. Especially now he says, he specified by the clothing. Vayaset ha'ephod. They made the ephod, the apron. Vayaset ha'choshen. They made the breastplate. Velo amar. It doesn't say anywhere. Vayas ha'urim ve'atumim. It doesn't say that anyone made an urim ve'tumim. Ve'elu haya ma'aseh heresh hacham. And if it was something made up from a craftsman, haya ma'arich bahem yoter min hakol, then it's the most impressive. According to the Ibn Ezra, it should be something that's very, like a crystal bowl or something very cool. It should be at length discussed. What was this image? V'imulai yirtze lekatzer bahem le'omkam. היה אומר ועשית אורים ותומים כאשר הוראה אותך בהר זהב טהור תעשה אותם. Okay, according to the Ibn Ezra, there is a big paragraph missing somewhere. Why is there no mentioning of anyone manufacturing these Urim Vetumim? Must be that it wasn't manufactured by anyone. It was only, like we said, a piece of parchment placed inside the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. Ve'od, furthermore, Tashuv tireh ki lo izkir behe hayedi'ah echad mekol hakelim. Says the Ramban, another proof that what I said is true. We never find the definitive article of he. In Hebrew, we use the letter he. In English, we would use the word the. Right? If I go to your store, if I tell you, please go to the shul and get me a talit. Get me a book. Okay? That's a book. It's an indefinite. But if I tell you, get me the book, the adds now becomes something that we know about, something that we spoke about. When you speak in Hebrew, instead of the word the, you would use the word he. Okay? Go get me ha sefer. Go get me ha. Now, take a look. Says the Ramban. When we speak about the manufacturing of the vessels in the Bet HaMikdash, Amar, it says, ve'asu aron, without the letter he. Just make an ark. You can't use hey unless you know what you're talking about. If it's the first time being mentioned, you can't use the word the. Okay? If I'm telling you for the first time, I want you to make for me a or an ark. Right? An ark. Make for me an ark. But when I tell you the second time, where is the ark that I told you to make, right? So the first time you're telling somebody about something, you would use without the word the. And that's what happened here. All throughout the building of the vessels of the Mishkan, ve'asita shulchan, without a hey. Ve'asu aron. Ve'asita menorah. All of them good. So far, so good. That's how it's supposed to be grammatically. Ve'chen kulam, all of the vessels. Every single one. He's not going to list all of them, but every single one, there's no hey. Indefinite. Uba Mishkan, but when it comes to the Mishkan, Amar ve'et ham Mishkan ta'aseh. When it comes to the Mishkan, it says ha. Why does it add the letter hey all of a sudden by the building of the Mishkan? Ba'avur, says the Ramban, shekvar hiskiru, because it already mentioned it once in the beginning verses of last week's Piracha. Ve'asuli mikdash. It already mentioned the Mishkan by calling it a mikdash, and therefore it's appropriate to use the letter hey, ha Mishkan. So far, so good. So everything is just written once without the letter hey. Vehine, but when it comes to the Urim Vetumim, Amar, it says here, Venatata el Hoshen HaMishpat. all of a sudden it says et ha-urim ve'et ha-tumim. All of a sudden we have the letter Hey. That's breaking the rules. How could you have the letter Hey? Lo tziva oto ba'asiyatam. He doesn't command him ever before. Ve'izkira ketuv be'hei ha'yedi'ah. We never had a mentioning before this. U'ma'aseh v'iten la'choshet ha'urim ve'tumim. Why? Ki lo hayu ma'aseh uman ve'lo hayu le'umanin ve'lo la'kahal Yisrael bahem ma'aseh ve'lo nedavar klal. Because this is something very important, and this is something that nobody had a piece of besides from Moshe. Nobody donated them. Aval hem sod masur leMoshe mepi hagevura. Rather, like we said, this is a special name that God gave to Moshe. It's a secret name he gave to Moshe, and no one else knew it. No one else was able to contribute to this. Nobody was able to donate. V'hu katvam b'kedusha. Moshe wrote this name with holiness. Or maybe God wrote it and gave it to Moshe. Doesn't matter. We don't know. And therefore, for this reason, because they're so important, because it's a special name, the letter Hey is used. Because we are allowed to use the letter Hey when it's talking about something that's very significant. Kemo vayashken mikedem legan eden et hakeruvim. He brings another example where such a thing was applied. Okay, so here the Ramban is going strong and he's explaining his opinion that again, the Urim Vetumim was a special name of God written on a piece of parchment. Moshe wrote it, God gave it to him. It was a special name that he was given through prophecy, and he placed it inside the ephod. Vayiten alav vehine, excuse me, let's go back. Vehine Moshe lakach ktav ha'urim vetumim. Now Moshe takes this piece of paper. Vehiniham sham bechoshen mishpat, and he puts it inside the breastplate. After Moshe dresses up his brother Kohinga in all the beautiful 8 pieces of clothing, it puts the apron, he puts the ephod, he ties him up. Vayasem alav et hoshen, then he puts the choshen, the breastplate, and vayiten el hoshen, then he puts inside the breastplate the Urim Vetumim. Beautiful. Now, what exactly was the goal of the Urim Vetumim? So now we know what it is. Okay, today's class titled Urim Vetumim. What is it? Do you know what it is? Now we know what it is. According to the Ramban, at least, we know it's a piece of parchment with God's name. Okay, which name? Don't ask, I don't know. Now what was the function? What was the goal of it? Ki hayu shemot kedoshim. They were very special names of God. Kohanim, and through these names, watch this. Ya'iru ha'otiyot me'avnei ha'hoshen. They would cause the letters that were on the breastplate. We know that we said the breastplate had 12 stones. Each stone had another name of one of the tribes. So the parchment with God's names would cause the letters on the stones to light up. El einei ha'kohen ha'sho'el b'mishpatam. To the eyes of the Kohen that would ask and inquire of them. So one of the perks of being Kohen Gadol, okay, a lot of perks. One of them was you got to ask any question you wanted from the breastplate. You would ask the special Urim Vetumim. You would ask a question, and the Urim Vetumim would cause letters on the breastplate, on the stones, to light up. Okay, who's going to win the Super Bowl? And it would say, Reish, Mem, Zayin, Rams. Okay, I don't know if that's what it said, but you would ask a question and it would say, this team is going to win. Right? Obviously, they didn't ask, questions like that. They asked very important questions. But whatever you asked, the letters would light up. But look what he says. Le'enei ha'kohen. Only the Kohen would see it. If you and I were standing there, we wouldn't see the letters light up. Hamasha, example. כאשר שאלו מי יעלה לנו אל הכנעני בתהילה להילחם. When Yehoshua conquers Israel, the Jewish people wanted to know what was the first, who's the first that's going to go up to attack Kena'ani. So, which tribe should fight first to divide the land, to conquer the land? So they asked, the Kohen Gadol asked the breastplate, היה הכהן מכוון בשמות שהם האורים Now, Urim Vetumim are two separate names. Urim Vetumim. We refer to them together as the Urim Vetumim, as the parchment that they put in. But he says actually, more precise, the Urim is the parchment that they put in. And why was it called Urim? From the word Or. What does Or mean? Anyone know? Very good. Light. He'iru le'enav otiyot. They would light up certain letters to his eyes. So in this case, when they asked who should go fight in Israel first, they would light up to the eyes of the Kohen the letters Yehuda. Yud, Hey, Vav, Daled, Hey. And then another Yud from the name Levi. And then an Ayin from Shimon. And a Lamed from Levi. And then a Hey, there's another Hey, but which other Hey are you going to take? Because the Hey of Yehuda is already used, because the name Yehuda already lit up. For Yehuda, Ya'aleh. Yehuda should go up first. So all of Yehuda lit up, then a Yud, an Ayin, a Lamed, and then another Hey. Where's the other Hey? There's no other Hey in all the tribes. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda we already used, Yisachar, Zevulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Yosef, Binyamin. There's no other Hey. So actually, okay, I don't want to go into this right now, but there's an opinion in the Gemara. The Gemara has questions. The Gemara, Masechet Yoma, wants to know, there are certain letters missing from the 12 tribes. Who could guess which letters? I'll give you a few seconds if you want to try to figure it out quickly, or if you want to pause the recording. Which letters are missing from the 12 tribes? So as an example, there's no, anyone know? Give it a couple more seconds. What? Do it again? Sorry, I can't see what you're doing. There's no Kuf. There's no Tzadi. There's no Kuf. There's no Tzadi. There's no, there's a Tet. A few letters are missing. So Gemara Masechet Yoma says, how would the letter Tzadi light up? There's no Tzadi. So the Gemara says, actually, there will also, believe it or not, again, hard to believe this, besides the 12 names, there was also the names Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov inscribed on the stones. There was also the words Shivtei Yeshurun inscribed on the stones. Okay? So there were a lot more than the 12 names, at least according to some opinions. So says the Ramban, if it's true, so then we have an answer. Where did the second Hey come from? Avraham. Or Sheheira Pama Heret, or the letter Hey from Yehuda lit up, and then it dimmed, and then it lit up again. So two Heys. Maybe that's another way of answering where did the second Hey come from. But either way, Kohen would ask a question, and the letters would light up, and he would have to now play Wordle. Okay? This is the first version of Wordle ever. You would have to now unscramble the letters and figure out what's the right answer. When the letters would light up, he still didn't know the order of which letters, which one is first, to unscramble the letters. Kimin, yeah, we can get to that, very good. Because if you look at it as an example, the case that we gave, Yehuda, Ya'aleh, altogether 9 letters. How do you unscramble that? Again, we did it for you already, Yehuda, Ya'aleh, so you know the answer. But imagine I told you, Hey, Yod, Daled, Vav, Ayin, Lamed. Go ahead, make a word out of that. You have no idea. He gives examples of what you could mean. Hoy, Hed, Aliyah, or Hey, Al, Yeduha. I mean, there's so many ways to unscramble 9 letters. Okay? So, the Kohen, right? Vetevot Arot Arbot, there's many options, okay? I think it's 9 factorial, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. But, Aval, Hayu Sham Shemot HaKodesh Aherim. So, some of them, remember we said there was a piece of parchment with God's names? So part of the names were called the Urim. Those names of God had one job. They were there in order to allow the letters to illuminate, the letters to light up. That's from the word, like we said, Or, Urim. But watch this. There were other names on this parchment. אבל היו שם שמות הקודש אחרים, נקראים תומים. Those letters are called, those names of God are called tumim. What does the word tumim mean? Bikoham yeh lev hakohen tamim. And from these letters, from these names of God, it would allow the Kohen to be pure, from the word tamim, beyediat inyan haotiyot sheya'iru le'enav. To be able to know how to decipher, to decode the letters that were lit up. So you had some names of God that caused letters to light up, and other names of God that caused the Kohen to be able to tap into what the letters' correct orders are. Okay? Let's keep going. Once the Kohen would meditate, there's a lot of meditation going on. When he would meditate on the names of God on the Urim, they would cause the letters to light up. Then he would meditate on the next letters of the Tumim of God. And the letters that were lit up, the letters would now, after he would meditate on the second names of God, on the Tumim, the letters would rearrange and he would have the correct arrangement. By the way, this is partially what we know as Ruach HaKodesh. What's Ruach HaKodesh? Hi lemata mina nevuah. It's a step under prophecy. Okay, there's prophecy. Okay, and then there's Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh is under prophecy, but it's above a bat kol. Many times the Gemara speaks about a bat kol, a voice from the heavens. Even the voice from the heavens, me and you cannot hear it. Okay, maybe you. I cannot hear it. We have to be on a very holy level to hear a bat kol. Okay, it's to be tapped into a certain frequency. So, Nevuah is the highest level of prophecy. Ruach HaKodesh is a drop lower. And a bat kol is a drop lower than that. And bat kol was, as an example, used in the Bayit Sheni, in the second temple. After Ruach HaKodesh, after Nevuah, and the Urim Vetumim no longer existed. Very good. So whoever asked, didn't we not have it? It's true. We didn't have Urim Vetumim in the second one, right? Ve'efshar, and it's possible, says the Ramban, after Moshe places this holy paper inside the Choshen, Moshe handed the secret of the names of God. He handed it to the leaders of the generation, and they kept handing it down. Okay, with whatever kavanot to have, whatever thoughts and meditations to have. Because again, the name, even if you and I saw the name, okay, great, you saw the name, doesn't help. You have to be able to meditate and to tap into very deep meanings within the name. Okay? And he says, look at this, Lefichach, therefore, Haya beyad David ephod. We know David had an ephod. Ve'haya kedmut ephod Moshe. It was like the one that Moshe made. So David had the apron, like Moshe. Ubo Hoshen, and he had also, David HaMelech had a breastplate, like the one that Moshe had. Aval, it was made out of linen, not what was made out of over here. It was made out of linen. Ka'asher ne'emar b'Shmuel, like it says, ve'amar benov, and by Nov he brings also psukim that it says it was made out of linen bad. And what says the Ramban, ve'yalbishu oto et hakohen shu mibnei hanevi'im sholim bo av'inyan lefamim kasher hashav bazeh. Okay, so anyways, this is the Ramban's opinion. He had this amazing piece of paper, piece of parchment, not a piece, it was holy, very holy parchment with God's names. Some names were the Urim, those were responsible of lighting up the letters. Some names were the Tumim, those were responsible of giving the Kohen clarity in how to decode the letters. Together they made up the Urim Vetumim. They lit up and they gave him clarity on what exactly God wanted. Just to bring one example of where sometimes there were Urim but no Tumim. The Kohen made a mistake. The most famous story of where a Kohen made a mistake of how to decipher the letters of the Urim Vetumim is the famous story, very good, with Chana. Chana, we know, was at the temple and she was praying for a baby. She was praying for a child. And Eli Kohen sees her moving her body in very weird ways. He suspects that she's drunk. So Eli uses the Urim Vetumim, he meditates, and he comes to a conclusion. He meditates on the Urim, and 4 letters light up. Shin, Chaf, Resh, Hey. Okay? 4 letters. So he looks at the 4 letters, and then trying to use the Tumim, trying to meditate on how to rearrange them. This is easy, by the way. It's 4. There's not many options. So he rearranges them, and what does he come out with? Shikora. She's drunk. Okay? So, she's drunk. Very not nice, very embarrassing. How could she be drunk? So he goes over to her and he says, you are drunk. You can't come to God's house drunk. And what does Hannah say back? She says, no, my master, you are mistaken. You didn't apply the Urim Vetumim properly. He rearranged the words, the letters. Instead of Shikora, he should have rearranged them, Kesara. She is like Sarah. She's barren. Or Keshera. She's kosher. But he misinterpreted what the Urim Vetumim were trying to say to him. So that's just one example of how you need a choshen and need a tumim. So anyways, I think these are amazing ideas. Again, just to really understand what the choshen is, what's the Urim, what's the tumim. This is the opinion of, again, Ramban, Rashi, and many, many others, that the Urim Vetumim, again, was a very, very holy piece of parchment with God's names. We don't have it today, but we should be zocheh very, very soon with the arrival of the third Beit HaMikdash to be, again, once merit to have these clothings of the Kohen Gadol, to merit to have the ephod, the choshen, the Kohen Gadol standing there, using all of the kedusha that he has at his disposal to light up the eyes of Am Yisrael. We should be zocheh very, very soon to the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash, to arrival of the Mashiach, that we can once again rejoice with all of our ancestors in this amazing display of holiness, of kedusha in the Beit HaMikdash. B'mehera b'yameinu, amen. Okay, everybody, we'll stop over here. God willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.